Pierre Poilievre knows how to take the government to account. He knows how to deal in the House of Commons. He's just a master at it. Maybe this is filibuster watch.
There are good news, there are challenging news. We're working on those together.
Now go to the honourable member for Carleton, Mr. Poilievre.
What share of Canada's national debt is owed to foreign lenders?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we continue to manage our fiscal situation in a responsible manner, and will continue to do that.
Mr. Poilievre.
How much does the Government of Canada owe to the People's Republic of China?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we would be happy to provide information if the member would like to send my office directly questions. I'd be happy to provide this information.
Poilievre.
It turns out I did a week ago, and they still haven't provided answers to the questions. The question in particular regarding who owns Canada's foreign-held debt. We know that roughly a third of our debt is owned by foreigners. How much of that debt is owned by lenders from the People's Republic of China?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we'd be happy to reply to these questions directly, and we'll do so, and we'll get to it in order as we work through this crisis, making sure we focus on Canadians first.
Mr. Poilievre.
How much is owned by lenders from Saudi Arabia?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Again, Mr. Speaker, we'd be happy to provide information in this regard should the member wish to send a request directly to my office.
Mr. Poilievre.
Which I have. Mr. Speaker, moving now along to the impacts of the debt on our people, how much would a 1% increase in the effective interest rate on Canada's national debt cost Canadian taxpayers?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to manage our Treasury function responsibly, and I'd be happy to get financial calculations to the member if he'd like to send those to my office directly.
Mr. Poilievre.
All right. Mr. Speaker, we'll try a different question then. We have lower interest rates than ever before, as we're not getting any answers. We have lower interest rates than ever before, which normally means you lock in those rates for the long run. Anybody who's got a mortgage knows you lock in for the long run when rates are low. What percentage of Canada's national debt is locked in for more than 5 years?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to get this information to the member, but I would acknowledge that as we manage the Treasury function for the Government of Canada, we look at both the short term, the medium term, and the long term, and we think we've come with a responsible approach to managing the ongoing debt that we have as a country.
Mr. Poilievre.
All right. Mr. Speaker, it turns out, according to finance officials, that less than 3% of Canada's recently added debt since March is for terms of more than 5 years. Why has this minister made Canada so susceptible to future interest rate hikes by failing to lock in the $371.5 billion of new debt he's added in the last months?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to manage the Treasury function of the Government of Canada in a responsible way, making sure that we consider what debt should be issued at a short term, a medium term, and a long term, as we've been doing as the Government of Canada during our entire term and as previous governments have done as well.
Mr. Poilievre.
Canadians would be wise not to hire this minister as the mortgage broker. They're looking to get the best rate. Let's move on to the Canadian household. The average household was $200 away from insolvency before this crisis began. How many Canadians would experience bankruptcy in the next 12 months if interest rates were to rise by an effective 1 percentage point?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, again, we'd be happy to get calculations to the member, but I would make the observation that what we've been working to do during the course of this pandemic is support Canadians, support Canadian families by providing them income during a time when they don't have access to income because they're actually at home. So we think that has supported them in a very, very positive way that allows us to ensure that we will have a continuing economy when we get through this crisis.
30 seconds left, Mr. Poilievre.
And of course, unfortunately, we will have a $1 trillion debt when this fiscal year comes to an end. How much will the finance minister try to raise taxes if interest rates on that debt rise, say, by 1%?
Mr. Morneau.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said to this House previously, we do not intend on raising taxes. But more importantly, what the member opposite is suggesting is that we shouldn't be investing to support Canadians. And I think that the approach we've taken, the emergency response benefit, the wage subsidy, have been particularly critical to enable Canadians to get through a very challenging time.